So a couple of weeks ago, we got the trademark for the next Kamen Rider series, Kamen Rider Geats, coming in 2022 after the conclusion of Kamen Rider Revice. Now, ever since then, we've been kind of full-on, leak mode or speculation mode or rumor mode for what we could expect out of the next Kamen Rider series to follow Revice. And we have an interesting set of rumors here today. Now, these could be legitimate, they could also be completely nothing. But I still wanted to talk about them nonetheless, because if there is any truth to them, there's some pretty interesting stuff that we could potentially be expecting for Geats here. And we are probably going to be getting some details on the series, like actual official details, within the next month or so. So it probably won't be too long until we find out the validity of these rumors. Now, before I get into reading what the rumors are, could these be legitimate? It's kind of hard to say. Now, we've actually had some solid leaks for Kamen Rider series right after their trademarks, like last year, and especially with Saber. We actually had some forum posts and stuff online very soon after the trademark that got things completely right, or definitely in the right direction. We had some pretty accurate descriptions of the Sword Driver and the One to Ride books, and of course we had last year some pretty good detailed descriptions of like what Revive would look like and kind of what Vice would be, and that there would be like 2 riders and everything like that. And it was like a month before we got any official reveal of those characters or any details of the press conference or anything like that for Revice or Saber or anything. So it's definitely worth looking at Geats rumors that are out there right now, because they could be legitimate leaks, or they could be at least pointing in the right direction. So these leaks were posted yesterday morning on Twitter via Toku Red or Toku Leaks, whatever you want to call them. And basically, I'm just going to go ahead and read the rumor here. So it says, story is basically about a company starting a tournament as a promotion for a new product that they're releasing. Several chosen winners get to become riders, battle monsters, and each other for the grand prize, only to realize that it is more than just a mere game that they're in. So I'll kind of take this one paragraph at a time. So start with that first one there. I kind of get some Gaim vibes out of that. I kind of get some Ryuki vibes out of that, with sort of a competition between riders, or some kind of company, kind of orchestrating everything with the riders, like kind of with Gaim with like Yggdrasil. So that's cool. Like if that's kind of the route that we go with Geats. I love Ryuki. I love Gaim. Both of those are in my top 5 favorite rider series ever, so if we're going down one of those kind of paths, then I'm totally down for that kind of thing. But it also kind of sounds unique. Like, we never really had necessarily like a competition where it's like, the closest would be Ryuki with the whole fighting for like a wish, but this is sort of different. Like I said, it basically sounds like a combination of like Ryuki's battle elements with like Yggdrasil if they were running it from Gaim. It's kind of like that. So that is an interesting way to kind of mesh things together. You almost also a lot of times in Rider series you have kind of an overarching company that is appearing good but not really good. We kind of have that right now with Phoenix in Revice. We've had that before with like the Kogami Foundation and O's, even though they're mostly good. We've had that with like Hiden in 01, although I think they were definitely good pretty much the whole time. But sometimes they're like a villain organization like Smart Brain or something like that from Phi. So it's definitely something that Rider's done before, but it definitely kind of feels like a new sort of combination of those elements. Geats is a lazy young man who hates doing anything he doesn't have to, but is put in the role of rider after being attracted by the company's promotion and eventual realization that it is all a trap. So that kind of sounds like not really, not necessarily a typical protagonist for Rider. It's kind of in the same kind of realm of that, someone who doesn't necessarily want to join whatever is happening and then does, or sometimes it's like really wants to join what is happening and then does. But it's kind of the classic thing where like there's always some sort of downside to being a rider. That's always kind of been a common trope or common theme throughout the entire franchise, that there's always kind of a dark side of having these abilities, of having these powers, of being this superhero. It's always been deeply rooted into whatever villain organization that they're fighting, or villain group, or alien, or whatever that they're fighting. So there's always been connections there, and you're always going to see that in a Kamen Rider series. So if that is what we have with Geats, then it's definitely not surprising. Now, those 2 first paragraphs are kind of more of the story element kind of thing that we could expect from the show, possibly if these rumors do pan out, or maybe certain elements will be true. But the next things we have is kind of more of what the suits could look like, or the toy lines specifically. And I think there's some pretty interesting stuff here to read into, because it's kind of possible and sort of implied by these potential leaks that we could be seeing either just a returning character, or potentially this entire show could be a sort of semi-sequel to something. So let's go ahead and talk about what we got in the next one. The gimmick is taken apart into two pieces and used in the driver, one being animal and other weapon. Gimmick is based on a previous rider gimmick and is played in the story as such with a returning character. That paragraph is probably my favorite one in this entire potential leaks because there's a lot of interesting things that we can gather out of that. So first of all, a gimmick being two pieces, that makes me think of like Kamen Rider Double, or more specifically, Kamen Rider Build. And I think there's a couple of other potential build connections here in this paragraph alone. Of course, they specifically mention here animal and other weapon, which is basically exactly what build had. Now, we've already had a couple different rumors, and I didn't talk about these in videos or anything like that, because this one kind of is the most in-depth rumor so far, I would guess, for Geats out there. So we've already had a couple rumors that Geats is going to kind of have a like split suit kind of thing, like a build or like a double. And we've kind of been having more potential rumors or leaks, or maybe people are just piggybacking off the same fake rumor. But we've had a couple pieces of information that seem to imply that Geats is going to have, form swaps that would be, half and half kind of things that could be animal and weapon and stuff like that. So that definitely does speak to build. Now, they do specifically mention here that this gimmick is going to be based off of a previous rider gimmick with a returning character, and that would be like integral to the plot. Like, it will be some kind of important element that it actually is either an upgrade to a previous gimmick or it's a continuation of a previous gimmick. So I could easily see this either being double or build. Now, the thing about that is that the build connections make me think with the animal and the other weapon thing. Now, the only reason why I'm still saying double as a potential possibility is because they are kind of really hyping double up right now. We have the Futo PI anime that's going to be dropping about a month before Geats premieres. Now, maybe they don't want to have things overlapping like that, or maybe they just want to go all out double, right? Bring Guy Memories back or something like that. Those were always a two-piece thing, for the most part, at least for Double himself, always used two, and kind of had the, back and forth thing of swapping the forms. Now, for a returning character, that could be a little bit difficult because notoriously it's been kind of difficult to get both of the halves of Double back. I think the last time that they both appeared in a film or Kamen Rider production together was in Movie War Megamax back in like 2012. So it's definitely been a very long time. So in that regard, it's probably not going to be Double related, but Build does have returning actors that have come back for different things before, especially during the era of Geo and everything like that. Build is extremely popular, and so I would not be surprised if maybe we returned to like the new world that's created at the end of Build, that all the Visa Nexts kind of were set in, or we could return to that kind of world to where you can have a brand new villain organization that rises up out of that, so that way it doesn't feel like you're necessarily retreading ground with Build's original universe, and you could do some kind of upgrade to the bottles. The bottles probably wouldn't be the exact same, which also does make sense too if we talked about the collectible gimmick listings back in the trademark video, to where the first set of candy toy items, because of how many there were in the first set, it seemed to imply that we might be getting a gimmick that does not have electronics, that could have like the rail systems on the back, like predetermined sounds within the driver toy, and that would kind of fit some sort of not necessarily upgraded full bottle, but that kind of gimmick to where the gimmick itself wouldn't make electronics like the full bottles did. So kind of just interesting things here that could potentially be pointing in the right direction with that. And I'm leaning more towards, if this is true, being kind of connected to Build rather than anything else. The series will start with 6 riders, 4 new ones introduced later, and 1 returning rider with their driver and an upgrade. Each rider are based off of different cultural warriors. Geats is Beowulf with a wolf and axe, Arthur, horse and sword, Nobunaga, Oni/bull plus gun, Thor, bird plus hammer, Hercules, lion plus club, and Wanyu, dragon plus glaive staff. Now, that last paragraph does sound pretty interesting, kind of just potential lineups of what the different forms could be, or the different rider, motifs could be, and all those sound pretty cool. Now, we've already had other rumors as well that Geats is based off of Beowulf. That was something that people were talking about ever since like the day of the trademark, because I guess Geats has some sort of connections, like the name, to like the story of Beowulf itself, which I haven't read Beowulf since like sophomore year of high school. I don't remember like anything about that story whatsoever, so I can't really speak to that potential connection that people were making out of that. But if that's kind of the gimmick that we go with, I think that's kind of a neat idea here. And especially interesting is about these 6 riders, 4 new ones to be introduced later, and everything like that. That's pretty typical rider at this point, that we start with 100 different riders and have them fight each other and everything. But it does say 1 returning rider with their driver getting an upgrade, so that could also once again be some kind of build related thing potentially, or really anybody, any potential actual returning character. Now, some people say this on Twitter, and it would be really, really funny if they did this, but technically, if this is a returning character with a driver getting an upgrade, could it be Shinobi? I mean, potentially, right? Like, Shinobi was never going to get his own series as the 2022 series, as a lot of people wanted him to, because of the fact that, that Future Rider is supposed to be based out of 2022, so there's always a long-running, joke that whatever the show would be in 2022, it would just have to be Shinobi to match the timeline. But, obviously they were never going to go, wholeheartedly with that, but potentially, maybe they would just bring Shinobi into Geats as a character. Like, that would be kind of interesting, and that would also explain with the driver upgrade thing, because the Shinobi driver is just a repainted Jiku driver, so it would kind of look weird if he just still had that driver as his driver, because it's like, why are we using a repainted driver from like 4 seasons ago? So it could definitely be a potential thing to where we give him a more Geats related driver, or like his own unique kind of belt or something like that, and maybe that the gimmick could factor into that and stuff as well, which would be really interesting. Now, I'm still kind of leaning towards, if these are real, it would probably be more of a connection and more of a returning character in terms of like a main rider from a previous show, a kind of like Zenkaiser Black being a main character of Dawn Brothers, for example, like taking the main from the last Sentai and having them continue to be a cast member in the current one. I kind of see that sort of connection here more than just bringing like Shinobi, who is a relatively not unknown rider, but minor rider in like the timeline of Geo. He only appeared in a couple episodes of that show. He got a small little TTFC spin-off special, and that's it. Now, it's not like people don't like Shinobi. There's definitely, obviously, his fans out there that'd like to see his world explored a little bit more, and more done with that character specifically, especially this year. So I just don't know if they would want to just pluck that character back as their returning character, or actually go for a main rider. I feel like you probably want to go after a main rider more, so you can connect it back to the old show, more connectively, I guess, and sell more toys that way. But either way, I think these are really interesting rumors and leaks. I'm covering these because the closer, like I said, that we get to the press conference and stuff like that, which is going to be in about a month and a half at this point, we'll probably start getting some more legitimate rumors out there, and more legitimate like design sketches of people who have actually seen the stuff and everything like that. So this video could age really well in like a month, where like we're talking about the Arthur based rider and the Nobunaga based rider and Build's grand return or something like that. Or this video could age terribly in like a month, where the show has nothing to do with any of this at all. I don't know, but I figured, it'd be fun to kind of talk about here today. I'm probably not going to cover like too many more Geats rumors and leaks and stuff like that, but I do kind of intend on making more videos about the show as we get more details. I'll definitely cover the press conference and stuff like that in July. Now, one little detail about Geats before we go is that one of the actresses from Revice, I believe is the one who plays the Igarashi mother, talked about how Revice is going to be ending at the end of August, so which is pretty much exactly what you would have expected. That lines up with the typical schedule of Rider airing. So at this point, you can expect that Geats is going to premiere the first weekend of September. So unless there's any breaks, which there might be one more, I don't know if we've had our annual golf break, but if there's no more breaks, Revice would end with 50 episodes, which would be pretty fitting. If there is any more breaks, they would end with like 49, which would be kind of a shame because it's the 50th Rider anniversary celebration season. So if they don't get 50 episodes, that's kind of dropping the ball right there. But for the most part, you can expect Geats to premiere the first weekend of September, and the press conference should be probably from the last week of July or something like that, when we'll get all the full details, the cast, the trailer, the designs officially. But we'll probably have them leak somehow before that. We do literally pretty much every single year. So until next time, you guys can follow me on Twitter at LivingRangeKey or at LightningFigPR, and I'd love to hear down in the comments below about your thoughts on these Geats leaks. Do you think that they're real? Do you think that they're not real? What do you want to see for the series? And that's basically it. Also, what do you think of Revice right now? Are you sad it's going to be ending here soon? I know public opinion on it has kind of shifted recently, but I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about it. But until then, I'll see you all next time.